Okay, so one element that students generally are challenged with is actually creating legends. So I put together some examples. Some are from past students, and then some are from my office. And I'm hoping that this will help you understand this important part of projects. Um, Please be aware, legends take a really long time to put together. So again, these projects are time consuming to make all the dots connect so that people can interpret what's on this two-dimensional plan you issue. So make sure to allocate enough time for legends. So this is a little tutorial on just some different examples of what we might see for conceptual design legends versus what you might see in an office for construction document legends. Okay, so we have different types of legends, and these are really to assist the viewer to understand all the symbols on the plan. As we've talked about before, most people aren't trained to interpret these two-dimensional plans. So, you know, a lot of times if you're dealing with maybe a homeowner who doesn't understand how to read plans, it's like, oh, that's pretty, what am I looking at? So these legends help people piece it together. So we might have materials legends, which show kind of our paving and our amenities. We might have planting legends, which show the different types of plants on the project. We actually might have irrigation legends also. We can use symbols for those legends, or we can do letter or numerical callouts for those legends. So we'll go through just some visual examples of all of these types. So this is an example of what we would call a conceptual plan materials legend. You can see there's a number of amenities and hardscape on this plan. This is helping the viewer connect the dots on what all these different colors and symbols are. So this portion, they've actually used both a color, so symbolic, and then they've also added a number for further clarity. I think you can choose one or the other, but generally we would show any kind of hardscape, which would be any kind of a paving, like concrete paving or tiles or stone paving or decomposed granite paving. We might show walls or overhead structures, any types of furnishings, which would be planters, benches, tables, things like that. Other amenities like play equipment would be listed on this materials legend. And again, this is designed more for our conceptual plan, like is shown on the screen. If you're working in an office or issuing a more formal set of drawings, maybe you're a C27 landscape contractor and you're issuing more in-depth plans that you intend to build, then we might go further with the materials legend. And so for a construction document level, we would include things like not only the item, but who might manufacture that item, some kind of a description that could be how big it is, or what color paving, what's the dosage rate if you're doing an integral paving, what kind of finish is it? Is it a broom finish? Is it a release finish? We generally have details which show the contractor how to put these things together. So we would refer to those details. If it's a purchased item, then we might list the name of the person who is the point of contact that they would want to talk to get a quote for materials. And we always want to, you know, it's always nice to include a square footage coverage. We don't always do it, depends on the project, but it's a nice thing to do. Your contractors will appreciate it. It will make their ability to bid the project go a little bit easier than them having to figure it out themselves. Here's an example for a plant legend. Again, this is a concept plan. So you can see some basic symbols being used. They've listed both the common name and the botanical name. Now this was for a planting design class, so they had to also research some container sizes and list the quantity. So for some of my classes, you're able to just use things like flowering accent tree. So you don't necessarily have to pick a species. And sometimes in early on design, we don't want people to get hung up on species. So we just want to set the tone for it's a flowering canopy tree or it's an evergreen canopy tree, and get the design approved, and then start filtering through which plant species there are. So sometimes we do that intentionally. So on this one, the student did list both the common name and the botanical name, so they picked plants for this project. But again, check the project description, because sometimes I don't always make you do that, understanding that a lot of students haven't taken a plant ID class yet, so they may not have those skills. I'd also say try and make yourself go a little bit easier. So if you want maybe a pollinator border or pollinator garden, don't get hung up on drawing, 10 different types of tiny plant symbols for that. Think about using one hatch, and then you can say plants like this, and you can include a list of plants. So we do that a lot, and you'll actually see that on the next page, where we have kind of an example construction plan. Again, we're showing the trees, shrubs, ground cover, and seed mixes. We are designating the genus and species and the common name of plants. We are telling the contractor what size container they should buy, what the mature size of that plant is. If we want it spaced at a certain different distance, we do that a lot of times for ground covers. What's that spacing they should be installing it at? We try and provide a quantity. Anymore, we have to include the water usage of that. So we research the WUCL's rating. We talked about that in our water budget class on where to research that information. And you can see at the bottom of this one, we've used a hydroseed mix. This was actually a restoration plan. So we've used one hatch, and that hatch includes all of those species. And as you get more into hydroseeding, there is the specified side, but then you have to dial into what is the viability of the seed. So this is how much coverage I want, but the seed is not very viable, so we have to order more, and that's called the, there's the pure live seed and then the actual quantity of seed. So that's what that little column's about. Most of you are not going to have to worry about that. Here's an example of materials legends. So these would be more symbolic. You can tell in this top one here, there's some nice little hatch patterns that match to this landscape, so you can kind of connect the dots of what each item is. Same through here. They've actually included some quantities and some square footage takeoffs, which is always nice to do. Both of these are using symbols to represent the different hardscape elements in these plans. And we can use symbolic symbols for plant legends. And I would say plant legends, pretty common that we use symbols. We're usually drawing symbols on the plan, so we tend to put these on the legends too. But you could, call out a number on each one. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that. It's just important that people kind of connect the dots of what each symbol or each number means, which species it is. So a couple examples there for you. And then here is some numeral or alphabetic materials legends to call out different items. On the left, you can see that this is the plants, and you've got like numbers are little keys. So it's kind of giving you Rosmarinus officinalis, which is actually the old name of it, RO, pointing to each symbol on the plan. So it's kind of using alphabetic numerals. And then same on the other side, hand-drawn plan, but then these little call outs for the different elements of planting within that plan. So some good examples for legends. I know this is something that is very challenging to most students, so just hang in there, and good luck on those. Reach out if you have any questions, class. So talk to you later. Hope that's helpful.